In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Princess Leia in her Hoth gear for the Vintage Collection, and this was figure number 2 in the Vintage Collection, just after Dengar. And I think it's a great action figure that's held up over the years. If you had one Leia for your collection, I think this is one that's a great candidate for that one Leia. So the particular version you're looking at here is the original one that came out back in 2010. She was updated with the photoreal face, and that was released in 2019 as part of the first wave of TVC action figures that were getting the photoreal treatment and were repacks from 1.0. That wave included the Darth Vader VC-08. It also included the Endor Capture Luke, which I think he was 23. The Hoth Leia here, and then also the Echo Base Han Solo, who is figure number 3. So, what can I say about this? I actually didn't get this action figure until about 2017, 2018. I only paid $20 for her at comic book store, and she was loose. As far as I could tell, she's totally complete. It's in great condition. And even at that time, $20 for this particular Leia was not too bad. I distinctively recall looking on eBay at the time and seeing some of the aftermarket prices, and some of the samples were going like $50 plus even. Of course, this was during a time when TVC was still out of production, or was still in its humble beginnings again at 2.0, and of course Leia was out of production at this point and samples weren't really going around. But I do distinctively recall back in 2010, 11, even into 12, she did peg warm heavily at retail. I skipped out on her at the time. I guess I don't really regret it because I didn't have to pay an outrageous amount for her. But if I had to go back in time, yes, now I would get her. But at the time, I just wasn't really that interested in this particular Leia. But of all the Leias in my collection, if I could only pick one, I think I would want her in her Hoth gear here, right? Because to me this is more of her battle ready uniform. It just looks good to me, and the action figure is really good as well. There's a lot of good engineered parts about this that I'll touch on here in a little bit. Is it up to modern standards? No, but I think it's still good enough to compete, and I know a lot of people probably would like to see an update of this, especially since we have the Black Series Hoth Leia now, which is an outstanding action figure, and I will be showing her here next, and of course later in the video I'll bring her out here for a little bit as well. I suppose if Hasbro was to revisit a TVC Hoth Leia, that's the action figure that most people will probably want her based off of. But anyways, let's just go and take a closer look at her. So this is the painted face, and I think it turned out pretty good. It's very crisp. Nothing looks blotchy. Does it look exactly like Carrie Fisher? It's not too far off. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close. For action figure standards, I think it's pretty good. And she has her hair braided up in this round shape around her head. As for the rest of her outfit, not a whole lot to say about it. I think this particular body was reused for a few other action figures before. The woman that also shows up on Hoth, and she was released in the Black Series 3 3/4 inch line. I think it was like Torn Far or something like that. I think she basically reutilizes this exact same body with just a new head. That's an action figure I haven't mind wanting to own over the years. I don't think I ever found her at retail, if I recall. Very niche character. And I think this Bespin Escape Leia, released later on, kind of reutilizes some parts as well. Maybe the thighs there and the torso. That's probably about it though. Of course, new lower legs and feet. Pretty much an entirely white uniform that's, you can tell, is looking kind of pale, and it's got some dirt and grime on it. She does have a badge there. I'm not sure if that's a rink badge or it's just a design on her jacket. Her sleeves. She does have a communicator there. And her boots. In terms of her articulation, she is super articulated. She has a ball joint at the head, which has a very nice range of motion. She does have a little bit of space between her head and her shoulders there, so it allows her to have that extra range of motion, which is pretty good. Hinged shoulders and elbows, swivel wrists, swivel waist, and then swivel hips and hinged knees, and no articulation in the ankles, which is not really that big of a deal because she has a very solid footprint anyway, even without a stand. I think she stands pretty good on her own. Let's just try it here. Yeah, not too bad. So she's really not missing much by having no ankle articulation. In terms of weapons and accessories, very light. I suppose you can count her vest here as an accessory. You can take that off if you want, but I don't think she really looks right without it. You could tell Hasbro sculpted her torso much more skinny just to accommodate this. She looks a little more filled out with it on. But that is an option for you. I suppose going back to the Bespin Escape Leia, that's kind of how she would look without it on. And then of course a standard Rebel blaster. Nothing unique about that. She holds it well in her hand. So I never got the re-release of her with the photoreal face because I didn't think it looked right. I have seen samples in person before, but personally I think the painted face looked better. Over the years it's kind of grown on me a little bit where I think, it's not that bad. But when it initially was released, I was not too overly joyed by it. Same with the Endor Capture Luke. I always thought his lips looked a little too pink. Some of those early samples for photoreal I think Hasbro kind of blotched on, where you could tell they were still figuring it out. But I suppose it comes down to your personal preference if you want a painted face or a photoreal face. Other than that, it's the same exact action figure. And I'll go ahead and bring out her Black Series counterpart here. And you can see what I mean by, I think a lot of people would prefer this one scaled down. It's a very nice action figure. I still think this might be the best Black Series Leia we've gotten to date. Of course, she has the pins in her legs here, but they're pretty well concealed, so it's not that big of a deal. But the head sculpt, the overall sculpting work of her body looks pretty good, and she has a lot of unique accessories about her. But we'll touch on that in the next video. But other than that, I think that's all I can tell you about this TBC Leia. So would I recommend her for your collection? I would, if like I said, if you only had one Leia for your collection and this was the one, I think you're in good hands with this one. It's pretty good likeness to Carrie Fisher as Leia. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close. And it's more of a battle-ready uniform, I suppose. And I think that's when people want one particular version of a character, I think that's the one that most people will gear for, is one that looks a little more battle-ready. I don't think most people are going to pick just Slave Leia as their one Leia for their collection, for example. Maybe they'll pick a New Hope Leia, but still, even that, the New Hope Leia was just recently revealed, and she's going to be very limited in her articulation, basically like a traffic cone. So if you want one that's a little more nimble, a little bit more athletic, I suppose, this one's a good sample, even without the ankle articulation. Was a nice action figure overall, would recommend. Prices, not too bad. I think the one with the photoreal might be a little bit cheaper now compared to the painted face here. But for a 14-year-old action figure at this point, it's very good. And it was a great action figure for Leia to start off with the TVC line. But anyways, that concludes this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for plenty more reviews in the future. There will always be more to come. If you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I always appreciate all your support, and check out some of the links in the description if you haven't done so already. As always, thanks for watching.